Welcome into Dental Profits podcast series. You are going to love my guest today, Mr. Glenn Lundy. I cannot wait to interview this man. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hi, folks. I'm Sean Crabtree.
And I'm Cameron Bailey.
Welcome into Growth Profits.
Coming to you live each week.
We don't want to change the way you do business.
We want to change the way you're thinking about your business.
We want you to have better results, happier clients, and make more money.
Let's get it started.
Welcome in to the Dental Profits webinar series and podcast series. The show that's all about you having happier clients, better results, making more money, and enjoying the ride. I have to tell you, I am really super pumped to be talking with Mr. Glenn Lundy today. I really love what you have going on, sir. Let me give you a proper introduction. Mr. Glenn Lundy, husband, let me make sure I get this right, okay? Husband to one, father of 7, general manager of the second largest car dealership in the entire U.S., and host of the very popular Rise and Grind. Did I do that good?
You nailed it, man. You nailed it.
I can't do it like you can, though, be honest.
Hey, I've had a lot of practice. We've got about 150 episodes of Rise and Grind in the books now. So I've had a lot of practice.
Listen, Glenn, I love what you're doing and I love your story. The reason that I wanted to have you on specifically, and we're not going to get to that first, but the reason I wanted to have you on specifically is because of one little sliver, in your life. And you got so many facets to your story, but you've taken that dealership from 120 cars a month to 1,000 in a month.
Yes, sir.
That is a heck of a success story. And I want to get into the sales aspects of that. And I'd love for my audience to hear some of the challenges that you see in dealing with 300 employees or something on the 2 dealerships that you work with. Specifically when it comes to sales, I'd love to know what some of the challenges are. But before we get to all of that, put it aside for a moment, because you've got a really interesting story. And I found that very successful people always have tragedies and things that happen in their life that they're so thankful for because that's what made them who you are. And you've got a really unique story. So having said all of that, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what's your story, my friend?
Well, I am a Kentuckian now, but I actually grew up in Flagstaff, Arizona. I grew up on the western side of the United States, and I grew up into what they call, I guess nowadays, the appropriate terms are like multi-blended family, whatever terms you want to use. But my dad was black and my mom was white.
Okay. All right.
And
multi-blended. There you go.
Yeah. Multi-blend, whatever, biracial, whatever words you want to use.
Yeah.
I grew up, my parents got divorced when I was about 11 years old, I guess. They split up, and it was really interesting because my mom, who is white, remarried a white gentleman, and my dad, who's black, remarried a black woman, and they ended up moving 2 apartments apart. So my dad with my stepmom, they were in apartment 30, and my mom and my stepdad, we were in apartment 28.
Wow.
And it was a really interesting kind of growing up between the 2 cultures. The woman that my dad remarried, my stepmom, she had kids also. And so we ended up with, basically we had 8 kids in apartment 30,
wow.
Whereas in apartment 28, it was just me and my sister.
Wow.
And every stereotype you could throw out there fell into place, man. Like at mom's house, it was kind of quiet. It was country music. It was rock music. It was just kind of chill. And over at dad's house, it was, hip hop music, gospel music, collard greens. It was wild. A lot of KFC and watermelon and Kool-Aid and all that good stuff. So I got to grow up with both cultures, which was.
That's very cool. That's actually that's very cool. You've seen it all the way around, haven't you?
I have, man. I have. And it was interesting. It was a blessing and a curse because from that, I'm able to basically get along. I can get along with anybody. I can understand kind of where they're from, everything. As far as different cultures, I'm totally open-minded to all of that. because of the way I grew up, and that's definitely the blessing. The curse side of it was I had a really tough time identifying and creating real strong bonds and relationships because I didn't really know where I fit in, you know.
And now
And
you know you fit in everywhere,
that's
right?
right.
I mean, there's
That's
not a
right.
place you don't fit in.
That's it. You're absolutely correct, man. It's definitely awesome nowadays. But in high school, it was a little tough, not knowing, where to go. So yeah, so I kind of grew up in that environment. My parents, they worked hard. They were both, my dad was a factory worker, drove a forklift, and mom worked at a place called Gore Associates, where she was a doctors actually would call in. She worked in the medical library for this Gordon Associates place. So the doctors would call in and she would look up information for them and so on and so forth. And they just kind of did their thing for, average wages, I guess what you would say. And we lived a lower middle class, kind of upbringing.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. And so, I mean, so you got your feet under you, but early on, that must have been kind of tough. I mean, I can see that in the formative years. Everybody has challenges and concerns and things in high school, and you got hormones, and you're trying to fit in, and you had this this other stuff going on, which probably made that pretty difficult.
It definitely was. It definitely was. Now, luckily for me, the school part itself, like education, has always been easy to me. I've always been I'm that kid that, never has to study, stay up all night the night before, show up, ace the test. That was just the kind of kid I was. So that was good. I was able to get good grades and teachers liked me. But on the other side of that, my brain was constantly trying to figure out where I fit in and kind of
Mm.
outdo myself at times. And so I kind of was a little bit of a troublemaker, if you know what I mean.
Okay. Yeah.
I was a
Yeah.
little bit of a troublemaker, hanging out with different crowds, causing as much trouble as I possibly could. But at the same time, doing really well in school. I was a salesman. I've been a salesman my whole life. So, so I could sell people on a lot of things, but went to college. I went to college. I got a scholarship I got a couple scholarships. I got one for being smart and being brown at the same time, so that was a cool scholarship. And and then I got another scholarship for being able to jump really far. I got a scholarship for triple jump, and went to Northern Arizona University for track and engineering. Really at the time.
Wow.
But I didn't care about any of that. All I cared about was girls, man. So that
Don't.
was it.
I mean, that's all of us at that age. What is the triple jump? What is that?
Triple jump it's kind of hard to explain it, but you run full speed sprint, then you jump off one foot, you land on that same foot, you do a
Oh,
jump to the other foot, and then you go into the pit.
awesome.
Yeah, so
So,
yeah, so
so
I really enjoyed triple jump. It was a fun event. But went to college, started chasing girls, found one that I really liked, and introduced myself to her, and then she was pregnant, like
it just
instantly.
happens that
Just like
quick.
that. Yeah, it was like, "Hi, how you doing?" She's like, "Great, I'm pregnant and it's yours." So, um, so
It's
I had
funny
to
how it
drop,
happens that way.
dude, it's nuts, man. It's nuts. So I had to drop out of, I didn't have to, I chose to drop out of college at that point and kind of hit the workforce so I could support this kid, the family, do the right thing, that kind of thing. And that is when basically, a couple odd jobs here and there, but then ultimately I got a job selling cars at a place called Planet Nissan Subaru in Flagstaff, Arizona.
Mm.
And that's when everything kind of started to really get wild once I got into the car business, because the car business in most places in the country is brutal, man.
I've always heard that. I've never been in the car business, but I've always heard that that is the case. And some experiences can be wilder than other experiences. But I'd love to know, why is that? Is it the pressure? Is it the just the culture itself? Why is that? What makes the car business so wild and out there?
Well, here's what I believe. I believe that over time, the auto industry, see, it started out as this really cutthroat, make as much money as you can kind of mentality. And a bunch of owners came in that were really cutthroat, make as much money as you can type people. And it was really people that you already had to have money because cards are expensive, right? So you got people with money that are kind of cutthroat buying these stores, and it started to create this culture where they would basically, I like in my book I use the word enslave. So they would enslave these young people. And
Mhm.
what I mean by enslave is they bring you in and they don't train you, they don't educate you, um, they work you to death, 8 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. For 7 years, I was 8 a.m. till 9 p.m., 7 days a week. We were open
Wow.
on Sundays.
Wow.
I did get every other Sunday off, but I'd get phone calls all day on Sunday. So I might as well have been at work.
Mhm.
No education, crazy hours, enslaved hours, and then very low wages.
Mhm.
Very, very low wages, right? So the reward wasn't there. And the house always won,
Right.
right? The owners are making all the money. They got the guys down in the mines shoveling up the gold,
Right.
right? So I think that's how it's been for a really long time. And so that just kind of became the norm. Like when I went into that dealership, I didn't know nothing.
Mhm.
I'm 20 years old. I didn't know any better. All
Mhm.
I knew is that I had an opportunity to make like $50,000 a year,
Right.
which was more than my dad was probably making driving a forklift, you
Yeah.
know? So I thought that was super cool. And I dove right in, and I happened to be really, really good at it because I could get along with
With
all the
everybody.
people. I
Yeah.
got along with everybody.
Right. Right.
And I had a little bit of intelligence to me. I was smart, and I also was fairly manipulative. So I figured, I knew how to get things done.
Mhm.
So I dove right in, did well, sold cars for a while, got promoted into a finance position at 21, 22 years old. Then I went to a sales manager position from there. So my career wise was blossoming. My relationships and my morals
Yeah.
were on the dive.
Right.
They were on the dive. So baby's mama, right? Her and I, that relationship out the window because I was gone. I was gone 7 days a week. I mean, what kind of relationship could I have?
Mhm.
So that relationship fell apart. The people that I was hanging around with, usually, in environments like that, there's no background checks or anything like that. You got crooks, you got criminals, you got druggies, you got drunks, you got whatever. And I was one of those. I was just in it, and it was all about the money. And we would party as hard as we worked. And that was just kind of my life for a while. So career was good, but everything outside, not good. Um, so it wasn't very long before my ex, she left, ran off. We tried to stay friends, and then I reached a point. My daughter was 6 years old and had been in my life every single day until she was 6. And it was a Sunday afternoon. I remember Isabel, her mom had taken her and was supposed to bring her back on Sunday. And so I heard a knock on the door, and I figured it was my ex and my daughter. And I opened the door, and it was a process server. And he's hands me some papers and says, your ex, she wants full custody of your kid. She doesn't want you to be able to see your kid anymore. And of course, I went into the whole, victim mentality. What is she talking about? I'm the best dad in the world. That whole lie that I was telling myself
Right.
at the
Right.
time. So I went into that, and regretfully, since the auto industry, I wasn't making any money that I was making, I was spending, and I didn't have any money to fight it. And we had never been married, so I didn't have any like legal rights. And 30 days later, that was it. She was out of my life. I
And
couldn't
she was
contact
6 at the
her.
time.
She was 6 years old. Yes, sir. But I
So
wasn't
is
allowed to have contact with her, nothing.
wow. So was that the moment of clarity you and I were talking about? I had a moment of clarity myself. Was that it for you?
That was the moment of stupidity for me. At that point, I blamed the world for everything, and it
Right.
was not my fault. I quit my job. I packed up my Ford Mustang, and I said, you know what? I've been trying to do the right thing for
Mhm.
years now. So now I'm going to go be selfish, and I'm going to be about me, and I'm going to travel around the United States, and I'm going to play poker for a living, and it's going to be awesome. I'm going to live in casinos, and I'm going to make millions of dollars, and it's going to be amazing. Screw everybody, right? So that was my plan. That was like an actual plan, was to go out and live in casinos. And so I left Flagstaff, Arizona. At that point, I couldn't even stand the thought of seeing my daughter at a grocery store or seeing her, somewhere. Flagstaff's a small town,
Wow.
seeing her and not being able to have contact with her. I couldn't
Wow.
stand that idea.
Wow.
So I busted tail out of there and went to Vegas, right? And played cards for, I don't know, 2 weeks or so before I was broke and sitting in a parking garage trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. Made some phone calls, leaned on some people that I knew, ended up traveling kind of all over the Western United States playing poker. I did play poker for about a year and a half. And then I reached a point where,
Jeez, a year and a half just living off of poker.
man, 10 a.m. till 10 p.m. I was in casinos, breakfast,
Kidding.
lunch, and dinner every day, every day.
Really?
Talk about a unhealthy life.
Wow.
Living in a casino. My closest friend is the same guy that would take my rent money. It was just, and I completely disconnected from the rest of the world because I was
Wow.
just in this place where I could just drink all day and I could play cards, and that was literally all I had in my life for a little over a year.
Wow.
But it wasn't
Jeez.
long before it was crazy, man. But it wasn't long before I burned enough bridges, asked for enough favors, reached a point where I didn't have kind of anywhere to go. And ultimately, I just remember I was in San Diego and nowhere to go, no one to call, no money, a couple quarters in my pocket. And I jumped on a bus out there. And out there in San Diego, they run kind of 24 hours on their buses. And so I jumped on a bus and I slept on a bus. And then I would get up. They'd kick me off the bus at 6 a.m. when they got to the depot. And I would spend the day basically looking for loose change so I could get, a sandwich from McDonald's or whatever. So I'd look for loose change, get enough for a sandwich, get enough to get back on the bus, and get back on the bus again that next night.
Dude, what a story, man. Holy smokes.
Oh, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Wow. I mean,
So,
you're just living in survival mode.
I really
basically.
was.
Wow.
I really was.
So how in the world did you go from that to being in Kentucky, Paris, Kentucky?
Well, I spent this little period of time homeless. It wasn't really, wasn't super long. It was maybe 3-4 weeks, something like that I was kind of homeless. And I gave up. I was just like, this world's not for me. This life's not for me. I'm not doing this anymore. And going back to the stereotypes, us black folks, we're not very good swimmers. And there was a really big ocean. And so I
Wow.
thought, I'm going to swim out as far as I can, and I just won't be able to make it back. I was just ready to end it all. So I tried swimming out. And I just remember, I'm swimming out, and I'm not a good swimmer at all, but I'm swimming out. My feet could touch, and then my feet would get to the place where they couldn't touch. And I think, okay, I'm getting close. This is it. And I'm breathing heavy and things like that. Water's slapping me in the face, and I'm bobbing, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, okay, this is it. This is the moment. I'm going to go under. I'm just going to end it. And all this pain, all this, it's going to end. And then right when I would feel like it was going to end, all of a sudden my feet would hit again. They would hit the ground. I'm like, what is going on? Well, it turns out the tide was coming in, and I'm trying to swim out, and I'm not a very good swimmer. So the tide ends up pushing me back all the way up onto the beach, right? And I roll on the beach, and I'm just laying there, and I'm looking up. And I remember in that moment looking up in the stars and just realizing how small I was and how big the universe was. And that was basically my first spiritual encounter. That's when God was like, hey, I'm not done with you yet, and I hope now you're ready to listen. That's kind of
Wow.
I heard it. I almost heard him audibly, like, "Do I have your attention now, sir?"
Wow.
That kind of thing. So that was the beginning of my change. So I decided at that point to stop being a victim and start taking control of my life. And don't get me wrong, I continued to make a lot of mistakes.
As we all
After
do.
that point.
As we all do. But the story that you're telling there, my friend, is gosh, I just can't imagine what you were feeling in that moment. But to make a decision right there, to cut off all possibility except that now I'm in control. I mean, that's a life-changing moment.
It was. It was indeed. And it was the beginning of my travels. I got a job with 2020 companies, traveled around the US opening sales offices for this is when fiber optics first came out and people could bundle their TV and internet and, all, and phone all together. And so I traveled around opening sales offices and ultimately opened a sales office in Lexington, Kentucky, and just absolutely fell in love with the city, fell in love with the people, felt like God had led me to that place.
And that's easy to do in Kentucky. Lots of good people in Kentucky, by the way.
Yes, sir, man. Incredible people, great
Yeah.
tradition. And it helped a lot that I'm a car guy. And when you're a car guy, you look at the license plate frames on cars to see who the big dealer is. And every license plate frame I saw said Glenn, because there's a big Glenn Auto Mall out here. And then I
And you
kept seeing
thought, man, Glenn Lundy, it makes sense.
well, I kept seeing catering trucks for Lundy's Catering. There's a big catering company called
There's a
Lundy's.
double
It's like
deal.
Glenn Lundy, Glenn Lundy, Glenn Lundy. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll check out, Kentucky. And so I moved here. I remember when I got here, I knew one person that I had met while I had opened that sales office, and I had a suitcase full of clothes and a little bit of cash, $1,500 in cash on me, and that's how I arrived in good old Lexington.
Wow.
To start my journey. Yes, sir.
Wow. I tell you what, man, that's an incredible story. And most people, I would submit that anybody who's successful has had some sort of life-changing situation like that. But there are lots of people that lull around into it and never really get to that
Sure.
rock bottom position or whatever you want to call it. That's amazing, my friend. And so, I mean, you have come from where you were to now where it is that you are. How in the world did you take that dealership from 120 cars to 1,000? And what can my listeners and audience take away from what you're teaching your guys? What I think we said about 90 when you and I were talking about 90 out of the 300 are sales guys that you're dealing with on a regular basis, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Of course, the great news about that is you've come from that enslavement situation, and now that you're in a position of authority, I'm sure that looks much different, right?
It does look much different. And here's the thing: when I was here in Kentucky, I went through and tried odd jobs. I did everything in my power to stay out of the auto industry. I didn't want anything to do with the auto industry. I hated it. Right. And so I met a girl, and I shook her hand, and guess what happened?
She got pregnant.
I was like, are you kidding me? Right. So I meet this girl. She gets pregnant like that. And I'm right back where I was. Right back where I was in Arizona. I'm back in a relationship. I'm back kind of in the bars hanging out. I'm drinking a lot. I'm right back where I was. I meet a girl. I get her pregnant. And she's like, you got to get a day job. We got to make this work, And I'm thinking, I'm not going through that cycle again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. I'm absolutely not. But the only thing I really knew how to do was sell cars. So I made a decision at that point. Okay, I'm going to go back into the car business. But if I'm going to go in, I'm going to take everything I hated as a customer and everything I hated as a employee, and I'm going to do the opposite, 100% the opposite. And so we moved.
And I'm all in, by the way, at this point too, right? That's what you're telling yourself.
Right.
If I'm going to do it, I'm doing it big, and I'm all the way.
That's right, 100%. And so we moved to my wife's town, which is Paris. That's where my wife grew up, so we could have help from her mom because I knew I would have, some hours in the auto industry. And we joined Dan Cummins Chevrolet and Buick, the dealership that I'm at now, just a little over. This was 7.5 years ago. Now, luckily for me, and this was another God thing, the first day I went in to apply for a job, both owners, Josh and Dusty Cummins, were there. And it was a Saturday night. They were the ones closing the building. And the reason they were closing is there was a Christmas party going on for their team, and they didn't want anybody to be late to the Christmas party. So they stayed and closed while everybody else went to the party. So I got to meet them, and I gave them the best sales pitch I've ever given in my life, Sean. It was over the top, man. I am the guy. I've done this. You need me. I can run your team. I'll grow your business. I've got this experience and this experience. I embellished. I lied. I did whatever I had to say, right? And as soon as I got done, the owner, Josh Cummins, looks at me and goes, "That's awesome, man. We don't need any managers, though. But you're welcome to sell cars if you want to." I humbled myself, and came in on the sales floor, but I knew going in I had to get into a position where I could actually make a difference in not just that dealership, but in the auto industry as a whole.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
man.
So, I know you're gonna be running out of time in a minute. So, tell me this: the guys that you deal with on a regular basis, like, what is the, in the some of the folks that are listening to this, are totally enthralled with your story, but more than that, I think some of them have challenges with the concept of sales. Now, you're dealing with guys on a regular basis that I've done sales training myself in my previous life, and I understand, everybody's at a different place. But also, when you're a professional salesperson and that's what you do, there's ups and downs all the time, and you got to know where these guys are. You got to know who you're dealing with. You got to know what their challenges are. You got to know if it's a confidence issue, if they're in a rut, what are they doing different. You got to do all of those kinds of things. I'm clear about that. For the people who are listening right now, what would you say the average person who's not, because a lot of people you deal with are not in direct sales, what would you say is the number one issue, and how do you overcome it when it comes to, hey, I don't think I'm in sales, but by the way, I'm in business, which means I'm in sales.
Right. Everything is a sale. Everything is a sale, and everything you earn in life is a commission. People are so afraid of that word, man. That word commission.
Everything is a sale. I'm going to use that, my friend. Everything in life is a sale, and everything you earn is a commission.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. You want to go out there and get a wife, you better sell her on it. You got to sell her on the idea. You got to sell her on who you are, and that's what you get. Your wife is the commission. That's what you win. It's the reward. That's what sales really is from the get-go. When we're children and we're trying to get our own way, it's selling. We got to sell and earn that commission. And so with my guys, what we've done is I've found that it's much easier to, if I try to tell you, hey, you're a sales guy and I need you to sell cars, it throws up red flags. People throw up the defenses. What I tell these guys is, hey, you're a human being that's going to have an impact on this planet. You can impact people's lives by changing, by putting them in the right car, by putting them on the right budget, by putting them in the right circumstances. You can make an impact on their life. And that's the reward you're going to get. It's a feel-good reward. So we talk about at my store, one of the things that we talk about a lot, I call it one of my corporate family values, but we teach life skills, not just job skills, right? So I think it's important that people have their lives together outside of work. It makes them a better salesman inside of work. So all of my training and stuff is not just road to the sale, take them down this path, beat them over the head and club them like a seal. That's not how we train,
like a seal.
Yeah. What we train on is taking care of yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually, taking care of yourself in those ways, getting the reward of a satisfied customer, being able to help. Everyone wants to help, right? Sean, you like to help people, right? Everyone wants to help. So when it's helping people, not selling people, when you change it to helping people, that's when you can start to change that mindset and get rid of those negative stigmas that are associated with sales. And
I have to tell you, I mean, what you're talking about here is really it's interesting. You're saying it in a different way than I think I've ever said it or ever heard it. But we call it creating value, and at the end of the day, that's what you're talking about. When you look at what you're doing, whether it's the car business, whether it's dentistry, whether it's medicine, whether it's heating and air, like, it doesn't really matter. When you understand that you have the ability as a human being to change somebody's life, then it's not about completing a sale, and it's not about meeting a quota or making a number. It's about finding out ultimately what's most important to that person, and then showing them how you can solve their problem. And at the end of the day, that's value, and that is exactly what you're talking about. I got to tell you, I love what you said. Everything in life's a sale, and everything you earn is a commission. Dude, if you coined that phrase, then I'm going to steal it from you.
I'll be honest with you. I probably read it somewhere. I read and follow a lot of guys like Grant Cardone and
Yeah.
John Maxwell. These guys, they live in my brain, man.
Yeah, me
Like,
too. Me too,
everybody's
man.
got a little Jiminy Cricket. For me, it's a little Les Brown. And it's Larry Thomas, and it's a John Maxwell. These guys are here, so I don't take credit. I try not to take credit for any quotes, but it's definitely a philosophy I live by.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. I think I could throw a Les Brown quote or a Grant Cardone quote at it. I could throw them out myself, man.
Totally.
I tell you what, Glenn, I really enjoy this conversation. You're bringing good stuff to the table. You got a book coming out, really by the same name that you're just talking about, right? Corporate Family Value.
Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely, man.
I tell you,
and management in the millennial era.
I love what you're doing. And for anybody that wants to hook up with you and find out more about you, they can find you at Glenn Lundy, Lundy, GlennLundy.com. And that's where they can check you out on the Rise and Grind show every morning at 5:30, right?
Yep, absolutely. That's GlennLundy.com. That's 2 N's because I'm twice as nice. GLENN. I have to throw that out there because people can't find it sometimes.
Glenn, I would love to do this again, and I'd love to get a couple of those cool Rise and Grind shirts because we'll work out in those, man, and we'll put the word out.
That sounds great, man. I can absolutely get those over to you.
Listen, I would really enjoy having you back if you'd be up for that because I'd like to dive in a little bit deeper. I got a lot of respect for where you're coming from. I have a lot of respect for the things that you've been through. And you're only a few hours up the road from us. I think we need to connect, and I would really enjoy that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Sometimes in life, you just meet certain people and you're like, hold on. That guy's here for a reason. So from the moment we got the what's the word I'm looking for, the honor or the opportunity to speak, I was instantly like, I like this guy, man. I like this guy, and we got to connect for sure.
I would really enjoy that, and if you don't mind, we're gonna make that happen. Glenn Lundy, thank you so much. I appreciate the things that you're throwing to our guys. I appreciate what you're doing with the Rise and Grind. I wish you the best of luck, and I look forward to talking again soon. Thank you, my friend.
Hey, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
And thank you for joining us here on Dental Profits, the show that is all about you having happier clients, better results, making more money, and enjoying the ride. And that's what it's all about, my friends. Take care. I'm Sean. I'll see you next time.